I don't know if you can put it in words. Think about like a two-time captain like Blake Wright, who just embodies all things that are good about sport and about competing, and all the seniors that just were all in from day one. I mean, going back to 126, that was the one. Transitions are hard. They're always hard, and you know, there's so much talk of, oh, get your own guys, and we never talked like that, and they never thought that and felt that. It was just felt like we all, you know, became one team right away, and we wouldn't have, you know, be champions 2 years in a row without the senior class. And not only their performance on the field, but the way they led the entire group, the way they interacted in here, in the locker room, off the field. You're talking about a group that, you know, led a team to new academic records, new community service records, and then, you know, took some massive steps to restore Clemson baseball back to where it belongs on top of college baseball. We didn't get as far as we wanted to go, but we took a big step, and that was directly because of the leadership of this senior class, of the captains in this group.
Everything I've learned over the last 2 years, you come in with expectations of your guys, from the breath work and the journaling to standing for the anthem and the way you guys carry yourselves. The importance of some of those Michigan transfers to kind of help maybe explain that, hey guys, it really pays off, it's all for a reason, that just their value.
Yeah, you know, we call those standards, and we don't have necessarily rules, we just have behavior standards. I mean, this is just how you operate inside of this program, in the classroom, in the community, in training, in games, in the facility. It's a shared language, it's a shared mindset. And the Michigan guys were a bridge to, this is how it helped us at Michigan, to this is how it can help us at Clemson. But then you also need the majority of the team is not Michigan guys. They were Clemson guys, but a Riley Bertram and a Willie Weiss and a Jimmy Overtop, you know, these guys coming in certainly could reference, you know, where this was helpful in the past. And I can't say enough to, you know, how everyone was just bought in from the start. Because as coaches, we, you know, culture is something that happens over a long period of time. We're building our program culture right now, just like we're making steps towards winning a national championship. But what we do daily is we have these standards which create an environment. And that environment, a training environment, a classroom environment, that environment over time, every day, shapes the culture. And you need those players and the decisions and choices they make every day that shapes that environment, which ultimately builds that culture. So I can't thank them especially enough for upholding those standards every single day.
Is Andrew Chufo giving you an indication of his plans?
He's back. Chufo is back. Let's go.
How big is that, considering with the position that he plays?
Huge.
But to kind of have that older guy be the cornerstone there in the end.
Old veteran, good defender in the middle. You talk about an up the middle defense. Jacob Jarrell at catcher, Chufo and Purify up the middle, Cam Canarella in center. I mean, we just feel so good about our up the middle defense. That's the one thing, as you know, the roster construct. Everybody wants to be good defensively up the middle, and you know, we still need to retain some guys, and we still need to go get some guys, and we got a recruiting class that's loaded with freshman talent that will have some draft risk, I'm sure. But we just feel really good about the direction when you know some of the most important defensive pieces are in place.
Is Joe read on some other draft eligible guys, like Tristan Smith and Will Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly we're going in with the expectation that Tristan Smith and Will Taylor have put themselves in a position to be selected and will sign. But we also need to be ready to be there, and those would be two massive pieces to get back. And Will Taylor is Clemson through and through. Tristan Smith, Clemson through and through, and you know, if those guys each had another year, I mean, that would just be awesome for our program. But at the same time, we'll also be their biggest fans. If they move on to professional baseball, we'll be at their major league debuts, and you know, we'll be happy for them if they get the opportunity and it meets the needs of what their families are looking for in the draft. But we would also obviously love to have those two guys back.
Austin Gordon being in the closer role this year is outstanding. if he gets to come, if he decides to come back next year and not go into draft, how much of a deliberation is it going to be keeping him in that closer role versus possibly considering him being a starter?
Yeah, he can do both. I mean, that's what he showed. And even in the closer role, he had a 5-inning start in the 6th and the 10th inning the other day. He's just so valuable, and he's another guy put in the same bucket with Tristan Smith and Will Taylor. We're expecting he's put himself in a really good spot where he is going to get drafted and signed. But if there was an opportunity to get him back, that's another guy as well that we would just, we would do whatever we could possibly do to get any of those 3 guys and all of those 3 guys back. But Austin has huge value. I mean, if you separate his starting numbers last year from his bullpen numbers, he was an All-American as a bullpen piece. His numbers just out of the bullpen, I don't have those numbers right now, but if you just separated him out, it's elite, and he was awesome for us. And it's not easy for players to change roles in the middle of the season, especially when you go from Friday night starter to something else. And he did, and he did it as well as anybody could do it, and it was a huge part of our success all season long.
Eric Aiden was just in here talking about the conversation you guys had after the season wrapped up, becoming a bigger leader on this team next year. I'm curious, how rare is it to have a freshman who comes in and is that good and that consistent and that composed right away as he was all season long?
You almost never see it. He's not just mentally advanced for a freshman. He's mentally advanced for a college player. He just comes in with a superpower of a mindset and a disciplined routine, and just the consistency that he operated himself week to week, whether it be video review, journaling, just his throwing progressions, his drill work, you name it. I mean, this is a kid that's just special when it comes to how regimented and on task and what a self-starter he is. And so I always meet with the captains, and we had our end of the year meeting with all the captains and talked about who may be some future leaguer targets, and all of them said Aiden Canuck would be a great candidate. And for Aiden, he was so locked in on what he needed to do, the next evolution to take another step from a leadership standpoint was be to share that knowledge and put his arms around some other guys and help other guys in their development as well as his own. And Spencer Strider talked about that as well. They're very, very similar thinkers, and Spencer becoming Spencer Strider and the all-star and the franchise type player is also thrust into a leadership role where his voice now carries more weight in that Braves locker room, and talked about that, and that's what those guys want. They want, seeing that the best players are also the hardest workers, they want that voice to be heard, and so do the coaches.
There are unsung heroes in this game, and in my opinion, McClatty gets that vote Sunday for the job that he done coming in after Crichton was ejected. Talk about his job, especially there at the plate on that RBI single with 2 strikes, and the confidence that you had in him versus bringing in a pinch hitter to take his place in that moment.
Yeah, it's been coming. He's been doing really good, and every week in our inter squads and our training, it's been looking for the right opportunity to get him in there. And we ended up with a pretty set and consistent lineup with the defensive positions, and then platooning Gerald and Naraki at DH, but McClatty was like that next guy that he was just right on the cusp, and you could tell if we needed some kind of an outlier performance, he was a perfect candidate for it. And so the game rewarded him. It doesn't always happen the way you want it to. Usually it's something bad has to happen in order for a guy to get that, an injury or an ejection in our case, but he jumped in there and gave us a huge lift. That RBI single was massive. And he was just kind of, you could see it coming, like that's the perfect spark that could have taken us, deliver in a big spot. If we would have got to game 3, he would have been the first baseman, and it's just, it's awesome. Excited for him for next year. He didn't play much as a freshman, but he kept a positive attitude, and those are the kids you cheer for. They're easy to cheer for because they're just such hard workers, even when they don't get the reward of the playing time.
Coach, looking at 2025, with your current roster, possible losing folks to the draft, who you've signed, what are the pieces of the puzzle that you're looking to fulfill between now and the first day of classes, whether it be starting pitching, relief pitching, power, whatever? How do you look to 225 from here to today?
Yeah, I think we just try to look at it objectively, and if Will Taylor signs, we'll lose 74 home runs off our current roster. Then between who we have on this year's team and absorbing some of those losses, for example, Tristan Becerra he went from 7 home runs. Could he go to 17? Could he add 10 more home runs? Could Jacob Jarrell add 10 more home runs? Is Jaron Purify and Andrew Chufo and Cam Canarella, are they going to hit a few more? Jack Crichton's certainly going to go from 0 to something, and so we'll need to absorb some within our current roster, but then we also may need to target some and bring in some of those home runs, like we brought in guys like Alden Mathis and Andrew, Jacob Hinderleiter and Jimmy Obertop and so and Chufo, and so we may need to look at that. We are looking at that. So getting some power out of the portal is certainly a big area of focus for us. Maybe even a left-handed bat with power. Who doesn't need that? And then pitching, you can never have enough pitching, and that's the one part where assuming Tristan Smith signed and Austin Gordon signed, that's a weekend starter and a premium weekend starter, premium closer. Again, we'll develop our current roster. We'll let the guys we have develop, but you can never have enough good pitching. So we'll certainly be looking to, any lightning bolts that are like shut down, swing and miss, high strikeout guys in the back end, maybe even, best available, really, just best available portal players, if that's what it comes down to. We're managing our own roster. Had a couple of kids announce they're leaving, and that's to be expected. There's always going to be some attrition. So it's just managing who's leaving, who's coming, draft, and those questions will all be answered over the next month or so. But we absolutely are looking at it from an objective standpoint of how we're going to replace these innings, how we're going to replace this power, how can we make sure we're still playing this time next year.
Moving past the emotion of this weekend, do you have any ideas, any suggestions, hopes for how we prevent that kind of thing from, because you've been the victim of it 2, if not 3 times now in a row. Is there any conversation that should be happening or steps that can be taken, you think? Usually more rules, it doesn't help, but.
Yeah, I mean, we're not a victim. Look, we could have won those 2 games by playing better, right? We let them score 2, more runs than we scored, right? So we're not a victim. It's just circumstances that are unfortunate, but we're not going to play the victim. We're not going to.
I shouldn't have used that word.
Yeah,
I don't mean victim, but like, is there anywhere to go?
I don't know, and umpires, weather, things you can't control. It's really tough to harp on that, focus on that. So I think I don't have a solution. I don't have a good answer. I know that we're just going to stay locked in on what we can control and try to be the best at it, and try to be in a position where we play so well that we don't need the calls, and even a few bad calls or an ejection, we can absorb it, and it doesn't impact the outcome of the game. So it's unfortunate we've had so many ejections in the last 2 postseasons, but hopefully this is just pure coincidence. We can move forward, and we're still playing this time next year. Nobody's talking about what happened last year.
Going back to Austin, there was that moment in the 10th where they came out and checked his hat for sticky stuff. What was your read on that? Was that something
was stupid.
Florida
That was
has
stupid.
initiated, or what was your read on
Yeah,
that?
Florida initiated it. That was dumb. He's dirt. He licks his fingers, he touches his dirt, he touches his hat. Austin Gordon doesn't use any sticky stuff, and he doesn't need it. He's nasty. That was dumb.
Was it disappointing to see from O'Sullivan given
Little
that
bit.
relationship?
Whatever.
Just going back to Claddy, are there any younger guys that you have high hopes for that they're going to take another step? I mean, I remember Devin Parks at the beginning of the year, you were saying both going to purify from good players. Is there any of those types of guys?
Yeah, that's very excited about the freshmen and sophomores that are going to be juniors and sophomores. You just see a natural progression. When guys are willing to stay patient in a program and have a birthday or 2 and continue to develop in the same program with consistency, the same strength coach, nutrition, all the things, and you know, sometimes you can just see a big jump, and you don't know when it's going to happen. It could happen between year 1 and 2, year 2 and 3, or you know, in the middle of Christmas break from the end of the first fall to the start of the second semester with the spring. So I'm very excited for all those guys. They all have some type of a plus tool, some type of a weapon in their bodies that they just can harness, and you know, I'm just very excited to, you know, do the roster construction piece the rest of this summer, the rest of this month and a half. It's going to be hard to figure all the pieces out. I got a lot of fundraising to do and people to talk to from an NIL standpoint, but I'll attack that. Once we kind of get the roster and the dust settles and we know what our roster is, and it'll be a laser focus on making these guys as good as they can possibly be, helping them get to reach their potential. And that's really what success is, and that's what we're hoping for, is that each player can reach their potential, and this next year's team 128, can reach its potential and take the next step, which would be this program to go to Omaha.
Erik, at the risk of asking a dumb question on the heels of that, seeing what this crowd, this environment, this atmosphere was like the last few weeks, how much hungrier does that make you guys to get back to Omaha and bring this fan base back to the College World Series?
We're addicted. I mean, we tasted that energy and that atmosphere, and we're instantly addicted. We'll never get it out of our system. We want that every single year now. Want that type of postseason energy, that postseason crowd, that 10th man, that rowdiness. You got students on the balcony out there. You got people standing up, old people, young people, families. Everyone's just, you know, just all in. I mean, we may need to make some more capacity for seating to get this place even rowdier and figure some things out. But, you know, holy crap, that was just an insane environment. I can't thank the Clemson community enough. I love that by us participating in the postseason, of hosting, just by the act of hosting, that we could help the Clemson community financially, and all the restaurants and hotels and small businesses and everything, and we can do our part to, you know, enhance this community. And you can't just participate, you gotta advance, and so that'll be the thing, is we gotta advance through the postseason, and then you come to the biggest thing, which is creating these magical memories with everybody, the entire Clemson community, you know, all the Clemson fans and supporters. You know, the one thing that always stands out